Welcome to Nightlight. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is a time of awakening, of sharing and evolving, of spreading our wings and soaring on the cosmic breath of creation. Come and join with other like-minded spirits as we weave our lights together to seek understanding, enlightenment, and with a little luck, some wisdom. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone.
Welcome everybody to Neon Twilight with Solaris BlueRaven tonight. This is one of my favorite shows of all. Solaris, of course, most of you know, has been around for quite a while. Not that she's old, just that she's had a lot of experience. And she has two other shows that she does on podcasting. And happily, Neon Twilight is the third, the youngest, but for me the most fun because I get to take part in it. She's definitely had experience that most of us haven't had, so she brings expertise and wisdom, excitement, and joy to any show that I do with her. And having her on is like having a vacation from having to really work, to instead learn, share, grow, become wiser. And at the same time, there's always laughter and joy with her whenever she comes. So welcome to the show, Solaris.
Thank
Let me
you.
see.
Thank you for
Hi,
having me join you.
on
Good
your
to see you,
show.
Barbara. Yeah, our show. It's wonderful to be here as always.
Well, I think, it's funny. From the very first time I met you dozens of years ago, I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do a show with her? And we God, it was, I don't know when you started podcasting, but I think it was about the same time. When did you start podcasting?
I think it was around 2012. It might have been a little bit earlier than that.
Okay, so I started in 29, and when you came across my radar, you were just so far ahead of everything that I had done that it was like, oh, I'm just itching to get her on the show, and I'm just itching to, work with her and share philosophies. And it took it took a number of years, and it wasn't that you were refusing me. It's just that, it took me that long to almost, work up the courage to say, hey, let's do a show together. And
And I'm glad you did.
I am too, because, I it's a vacation to be able to talk to someone who talks the same language.
Hmm.
And quite often, when I'm talking to authors, I can talk their language, but it isn't always my language. And and I learn from every show I do. I pick up something and I add it to my Rolodex in my mind of wonderful wisdoms to weave into things and to share and to have a mystical spiritual aspect to it. But being able to do a show a month with you has allowed me to um, kind of dig deeper into some aspects of life and evolution and what's happening in the world and what has happened in the world. And we were going to talk tonight about, I guess, one of your favorite subjects, and that's time travel.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a great topic. Yeah,
Well,
I'm open to
it,
that one.
it is because I think that so many of us think of H.G. Wells and his book,
Hmm.
and the aspect of time travel is as old as time. I think people have always wanted to know well, what the future holds, but what the past held too. So
Mhm,
so it's a matter of are we on a singular timeline or are there many timelines?
mhm.
How how do you see the whole scenario?
Well, I find us to be we've talked about the being multidimensional beings. So to me, I think we exist simultaneously in multidimensional space-time. Even though we may not be there all the time in the illusion, or we may not have awareness of it, we're still capable of navigating and toggling, back and forth between the realms. So to me, I feel like that's really what it's about. It's our frequency, how we modulate it, and how we're able to access different timelines and databases of information. And sometimes people can go in reverse insofar as accessing a snapshot, like psychics like you, who can actually access a snapshot of a timeline, looking into the past and the illusion of, and then actually acquiring data there. So that's a form of time travel.
Yeah.
It takes on so many different formulas, but it's always about frequency. It's always about how you modulate your vibrational field and how you modulate the waves. And also, in my opinion, not to give you a long-winded answer, but this world is not modulated properly for space-time traveling, if you ask me. I mean, we've talked about that before. So,
Well, I got to thinking a lot about it, and I'm, doing a book on time travel with Tim Schwartz, and reading his book has had me thinking and wondering a lot about things that have happened to me in the past, and things that I think the most important thing that I am curious about is, I mean, I understand going back in time and seeing things that have happened and stuff like that, not interfering, but seeing things that have happened. But but if you go into the future, aren't you tampering with the past, sort of?
not in my opinion. I don't think so. Well, I've been in places that are beyond the space-time configuration, which you could say is the future. So how does that I guess maybe it had an influence. It certainly does with the technology. My point is I think that's what we're capable of doing, and we should be able to traverse wherever we want to.
Yeah,
I don't think it
if
does. I think parallel bleed through. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
no, that but if you're going into the future, aren't you bringing material back to the past that hasn't yet been perfected, and therefore aren't you in some way changing the future because you are bringing that awareness into this time frame?
Well, I think there's a parallel bleed-through effect for sure, but I think it's frequency-based, so even if you're multidimensional, say you're traversing from point A to point B, and you're over there in point B as an avatar, and one aspect of you is here, you're still having influence here on this timeline and on this database with whatever is here. So, yeah, you would have an effect to some degree, and that's why a lot of us who are, we're different, okay? So we do bring in a different database and different
Yeah.
energetics, and we have changed timelines. It's absolutely, things change. A lot of the time when you're looking at what's going on with, I don't want to mention particular departments, but they've worked on, dominating timelines, or changing something, or basically doing erasures on timelines. I mean, this is War, but it's definitely been done. So that's part of the equation too when you look at the time travel aspect.
Yeah, I just it was interesting because there are things that have happened to there are instances that happen to people that they don't look at as time travel, and yet it is.
Mhm.
Deja vu, especially deja vu. If someone, knows they've been someplace before, they probably have been.
Mhm.
And quite often, they will see people in period dress and stuff like that, and then they're snapped back. But so that it's a matter of, is that a folding of time? Is that a tripping a timeline? Is that, what would you call that?
But deja vu, to me, it seems like an expansion in consciousness, but also an aspect of looking forward, and also looking in reverse to some degree. If they're having deja vu, something they've already done, or also it could be something they put out to the cosmos that is starting to come to fruition in a sense of formulating itself for them to observe. So it could have a lot of different levels to it, depending on the thought form of the person and what they're capable of doing, and what they were thinking about too. But yeah, I mean that deja vu aspect of repetitive programming, we do have that with even this world, with everything is like a stream of technology, where a stream of information, people just ride that stream, and all of a sudden it repeats itself like a glitch in the matrix. That could be another example. I think there are so many levels to it. It's not even funny, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we unconsciously do slip timelines. I can remember a couple of times, when I was with my sister, and she started to describe something that just didn't happen. I
Mhm.
mean, and she did it so. I remember once we were in the car and she was going on and on about something, and I said to her husband, "Pull over. What did you do with my sister?"
Oh,
And you know,
wow.
it wasn't my sister. I mean, it
Mhm.
was my sister, but she was talking about something, you know, definitively
Mhm.
that in my time would not happen.
Mhm.
And,
Right.
I started to worry about, is she slipping a cog? Is she going into dimension? Is she, I really was worried for a while, but
Right.
she didn't appear to be nuts, but my sister is strange anyhow, but she's done that several times, and I'm wondering if that was a slip to another timeline where that did happen and I was the weird one.
Well, I don't even know if it's a timeline or they're just confused. Honestly, it can be so many different things when it comes down to how they're processing data. I have had people do that too, where they try to pretend that like my memory, my experience is their experience, that kind of thing, where there's an overlay of information, but they don't seem to understand who's who on that level, or the which person actually had the experience versus them. And I don't know. To me, it seems a little bit like there's something going on with psychological warfare to some degree, or even entity. It could be
Oh,
an
it could
entity
be.
thing, where there's something attached onto them that's giving them some kind of a formula in communication or the way they're seeing and perceiving data. But it can be so many different levels. I think a lot of people are getting erased right now. I think that there's an erasure going on, and people are losing their databases a lot. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens.
No, I'm in a community of people who are, it's not a 55 plus, but everybody's older.
Hmm.
And when you see somebody starting to slip, you can tell
Right.
they're slipping, and there's nothing you can do.
Hmm.
And except say the same thing over and over again to them. It's just phenomenal. The other thing that I have been wondering about now, um, I'm sure you've seen. Um, there have been times when you may have seen um, something from the past, people in period dress walking around,
Hmm.
kind of like out of place. And to me, that's a folding in time. That's where one time is folding over another, and there's a seep through. You're seeing into the past, but
Hmm.
you're not actually there. And would that be time travel, or would that be time folding?
Well, I think you're accessing a timeline, so it's a formula of time travel, but you're bringing them up to your field. So, and
Hmm.
I look at it as a parallel bleed through effect also. But a lot of we have seen that. I mean, a lot of beings like us who can access a database and a template will see something in between the realms. It seems to me like it's almost holographic, and that's what
Yeah.
I call them, digital ghosts now. Because a lot of what I'm seeing is not real time spirit world. It is a remnant. It's a fractal of something that it reminds me of being digitized in a hologram. So that's just the way I'm observing it. So I guess to some degree you can say it's time travel, but on a lot of different levels, I consider time travel beyond the illusion of time because off planet we don't use time. It's a benchmark of measure here, but we're
Hmm.
really in a very nebulous space time when we traverse. So when I go out and I acquire information, I'm not tethered here to this realm in the illusion of the 3D or the linear with the database here. I think that time, the word time, really doesn't have much value to the cosmos. So we can use it here to identify where we want to go and take like that snapshot. So for you, that timeline would have been whatever that was, whatever time period that was, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, I just I do think that events imprint time, so that, for instance, major battle 9/11 is a great example. The property on which 9/11 happened
Hmm.
was so horrendous, it imprinted time itself. So you can go there and see the building as it is hit, and as people, you can see it over again.
Hmm.
And to me, that's just an imprint, a negative of what
Right.
happened. It's
Hmm.
not it, so that's that's something different then.
Yeah, you're not going to the past. I mean, you're bringing, like I said, it's just you're accessing a database of information, just like a remote viewer or anybody else, if you ask me. And I find it interesting because that was such a psychological imprint on a mass collective level. Everybody's energy and eyes were on that object, on that tower, both towers, three towers, whatever you want to call them. My point is that that energy really did do something psychologically globally. So
Oh
we have
yeah.
that going on. But yeah, it's still an imprint. Any way you look at it, just like when we access things. I mean, I look at it as just a snapshot of data. That's all I see. And now, I mean, it's changed dramatically. This field is changing dramatically.
Oh, absolutely. But those imprints are still
Mhm.
there. They're there. Major battles, the
Yeah, like
concentration
scars.
camps.
Mhm.
Yes, exactly like that. And so I'm kind of trying to figure out time travel. Okay, what about Project Pegasus? Was that time travel?
Well, to me, it's psychological operations. That's CIA driven, and I didn't dive too deeply into the Project Pegasus, but I would say that it's more than likely connected to cyber psychological operations. I think that they're capable of doing phenomenal things with the technology I've been interfaced with. So I'm very clear that they probably had something similar they were using to acquire data from different timelines. But my point is that the information that we need is off planet and not here. So dialing into something, say you want to see where Jesus was in the concept of Jesus in mythology or whatever, you may not
Hmm.
even get a database that's accurate. It's based on your belief systems, and if you're interfacing with a type of technology I'm familiar with, it's going to formulate something that's familiar with your belief systems. So you have to be really careful. You have to be going in with a completely neutral space in your head in order to access a database, and that's why I look at that like it could have been war, psychological operations. And as I said, I don't know a whole lot about Project Pegasus. Maybe you know more than I do on that one.
Well, I know they were using kids, and I know they were projecting them into the past. I think is the one place they had a
Mhm.
photograph of somebody from the past. But then you get like the Philadelphia Project. That was
That's
time,
right.
time,
Philadelphia experiment.
time. Yeah.
Absolutely. That one to me was the bigger deal, insofar as because people say poo-hoo around Montauk. I've met Montauk clones and people who are affiliated with that project. So,
Mhm.
and I can guarantee they were plugged into something and they weren't crazy. So point blank. But you look and you see what's going on with that, and that was supposedly it was a cloaking system, but it changed the space time. In my opinion, it changed everything, and it
Oh
created
yeah.
even the delusions. I mean, we talked about with the people what happened to their personnel having episodes, psychological breakdowns because of the type of systems they were using, psychologically imprinting them energetically. And I do believe that it pushes you out of in between space time, especially when you're under duress. If you go through a project of any kind that hits your neural circuitry a different way and expands you in a different way on an electromagnetic scale, and then they start to connect you like where I've been, you can go anywhere, but you have to hold on for the ride. It's incredible.
Well, yeah. I don't believe time really exists. I believe
No, it's benchmark and
it.
measure. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something that we created,
Yep. Look at
and
the clock, look at the way they spiral. They're in like a vortex, right? From
yeah.
if you look at the old-fashioned clocks, what are they? They're constantly going clockwise.
Hmm.
Clockwise is like the vortex. Anti-gravity is counterclockwise. Think
Ah.
about it.
Okay.
Everything we do here is hypnotic. Look at the way you read, well, with the exception of the Orient, but left to right is always hypnotic, right? It's
Yeah.
putting you in trance as you're reading. And nothing I love to read, and we both love to read and write, but it
Oh
is
yeah.
interesting.
No, I just the more I look at it, the more even and this is going to sound really strange, but I really think that the biblical history that everybody's been taught is only a myth created to give humanity something to hang on to, but
Mhm.
not true reality.
Agreed. 100% agreed. It's accurate. Yeah, what you're saying is accurate. And that's what bothers me the most is because it's a tulpa. It's a thought form. It's a manifestation, and it's been used over many, many moons to control and manipulate the mass collective. And those of us who are breakaways, we don't comply with that. We already know we are the visionaries. We can see beyond the spectrum of what they're trying to do, but they'll
Yeah.
never get it. And I don't understand why people want to be part of that unless they're just insecure about what's going on in between the cosmos, in between space time, and when they leave this realm.
Well, it gives them a grounding, I
Hmm.
think. And I tried to talk to somebody, and they were and don't get me wrong, I study the biblical stuff as much as everybody else does. But I pointed out that if you put Jesus on another planet, they wouldn't know anything about him. It you
Hmm.
know,
It's the
He,
energy. It's the
yeah.
frequency. It's at the cosmic Christ. We've talked about the field of the Christ. It's a frequency. We talk about avatar, ascended master fields, which, you can put any label you want on an ascended master avatar, but the bottom line is that's what we're looking at in frequency, in my opinion. I think they interpolated the data wrong on purpose to use it as a grimoire of control, to be honest with you. But you're
Oh,
right. I mean, they
definitely.
don't know anything about their religions, and this is another thing. I honor anybody who has your spiritual path working as your own business, but when you traverse the galactic highway, please do not push that onto them because they're not interested. The
Well,
divine source, great cosmic mind has no interest in what your belief systems are because they're incorrect.
well, I think what gets to me, and lately I've heard a lot of it, and I'm kind of just, thinking I have to do a show on it. People will say, um, "Well, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual," and that's fine. But then I ask them, "What is spiritual? What does that mean?" And they just give me, they kind of stare at me. Well, I'm spiritual, and it's like, so what is spirituality to you? I mean,
Hmm.
okay, you reject organized religions. I got that, but what is spiritual? I mean, I can go on and on, but
Hmm.
they don't seem to, they can't explain it. They just know that the organized religion part doesn't appeal to them anymore.
Right.
But if they are, see, the thing is they'll say something, but they're not living it,
Right.
whatever it is,
Right.
and
Well.
and
Mhm.
you know that becomes confusing to me.
Well, I can agree with that. The control program is the religion. Okay, that we've talked about how it can be a control program of social engineering and indoctrination, which is not necessarily a positive thing in any formula. To me, spirituality is higher consciousness, is expanding in consciousness. It's interactive with the cosmic design and the intelligence design behind what we are as co-creators to the cosmos. I
Yeah,
can I can interpolate the data my way. You're open to everything in energy and consciousness. That's pure light, pure energy to some degree. Some people go in a more dark corridor, but I wouldn't recommend that.
no,
But honestly, it's about energy. It's about navigating as a mystical scientist. In my opinion, this is me. That's what I do as beyond spiritual. I just navigate and traverse. I understand there's intelligent design out there, but I don't put a label of religion on it because that is not what it's about to me in any formula.
no, exactly. And so it's kind of like, fine, pull away from organized religion, but at least define what it is you're going to be.
I agree. And they're still
Um,
seeking, it sounds like, some of them, right?
yeah, well, aren't we all? It's a constant growing process. I don't think that, I think if I ever stopped learning, there wouldn't be any point to being here.
Well, that's the
Um,
point, but I find that most of our learning hasn't even begun to surface because of
no,
where we
that's
are
true.
in this configuration. We need to be in another space-time configuration to fulfill what we need to do. I'm just speaking for beings like us. I know for me, for sure, and I'm sure you're kinda on that level too. So it is like, okay, I know you're super intelligent and I get it, but I'm getting bored with this, and not with you, but I'm saying what they're
No, I
doing
got
here on the
you.
timeline is just like, no, we've got to go full speed ahead, and that we do that through traversing the galactic highway. We really need a new database to integrate here,
Well, we need a new doorway, a new portal.
right? And we
Um,
have plenty of
What
those.
yeah, but it's a matter of going through them and then bringing back material that is appropriate and to be shared. You're a teacher, I'm a teacher, and it's kind of like you get to a point with some that you're hitting your head against a brick wall,
Hmm.
because what you're saying takes away their stability, and
Correct.
they don't want the stability taken away from. So when the time travel thing came up here, and I kept thinking, okay, I know I've traveled in time. I know, well, we all have traveled in time, but it's a matter of doing it cosmically and spiritually as opposed to, living time and therefore you have traveled through it.
Hmm.
But time, as people talk about it, stretches forward and backwards. And yet, while people do genealogy, going back in time,
Hmm.
um, but intellectually they do that, but it's spiritually, which is the cool thing,
Hmm. Hmm.
um,
Right.
whether it's
Yep.
through whether it's through meditation, whether it's through astral travel, whether it's through remote viewing. Um, so that it's sort of like it's the going forward that I'm so curious about. The Rendlesham Forest thing, the binary codes that were on the drone that Peterson touched, talked
Hmm.
about something 8100 and 8100. And so what happened between now and 8100? If
Hmm.
civilization of some sort was able to to travel that distance, what happened in between? And were we still on Earth?
Well, I don't know if we've touched on this before. We might have a little bit, but to me, that was a psychological operation. And I'm not really convinced that it wasn't something that we had that was exotic technology. He was being imprinted with at the time using binary language. It could have been something else, but to me, it seems like it wasn't something that was as vast as people say it is. But that's
Well,
just my own observation.
what gets me is it was binary code.
Right.
That's Earth based.
Correct.
That doesn't mean it transfers to other planets and other times.
No. I mean, you could
So,
probably use it, but in my opinion, I think it was Psywar. I think 99% of the stuff that's going on here with military having experiences. As a matter of fact, there's a fellow that just came out saying he has some kind of an attack. Well, like I don't know what it was, some kind of a possession. I call it electronic possession. And he's talking about his experience, and I guarantee you, it's Psywar. It's electronic warfare, but nobody wants to say it, so I'm going to say it here. And I don't know if you know who this gentleman is, and I just saw briefly they were talking about him. I think his name is Jason. I'd have to look it up. But yeah, I mean, this is what I mean by the type of people that are coming out. They're supposedly militaries. You want to give them credibility. And no offense to them, but they're the first ones to get brain hacked, remotely controlled, electronically tagged, and interconnected, and they don't even realize it until it's over. So talk to someone who's been in these projects.
yeah.
I'm the outsider on the inside, but I still get it, you know. So
Well,
I'm just saying, I try not to spin it in all those directions, but when you see things like that, you can explain them, right? We have an analysis we can do on a linear scale and even on a multidimensional scale that suggests that this is something beyond classified they're doing to people here on this realm.
and it probably is happening. I mean, there are the psyops, and I mean, the thought that just the military that we know of is the only agency that is at work here would be foolish.
Hmm.
So that
Yeah, it's a
so that
global operation.
yeah, and it has nothing to do with politics, and it has nothing to do with countries. It has to do with what's happening here. And maybe we are a great big experiment. Maybe we're the mice, trying to get out of the maze that has been created for us intellectually. Um, I must say that, when I call it clicking in. When I click in,
Hmm.
um, there's a whoosh, and there's total freedom.
Hmm.
But there's not here.
Correct.
And it's becoming more and more obvious. But at the same time, it's something we've been living with all of our lives and will continue to live with. And it, as you said, getting off world is probably where a lot of people are going to go.
Yeah, breakaway civilizations and societies. I just don't want to see a certain select club of people who are connected to, the billionaire, trillionaire club deciding that they want to be the ones to be out there when in fact it should be beings like us who are going to be traversing. But I can tell you point blank that they're not going to get very far, even with their technology. I can tell you point blank that things will go backwards for them. But this is the plan, and I don't want to get. I don't know how much you want to get into that level of it, but
Yep.
there's the Iron Dome in space, for example, that Trump wants to work on now. We've always had a weaponized platform. We've always had weaponized low Earth orbit. We've always had weaponized space atmosphere. We have a synthetic field here, so this isn't anything new. But what I'm suggesting is, and I can tell you point blank from my experience with extraterrestrial off-planet intelligence, they don't want us interfacing with off-planet systems unless it's their military and their personnel. So they're going to try their damnedest to make sure that they block any signals or anything coming in from off planet to any of us where we can traverse the galactic highway or get out of here. Now that's what I am telling you ahead of time in the illusion of time. So I guess this is time traveling. I can guarantee you. I mean, I'm profiling what they're doing, and it's not about this war from nuclear war and this, that, and the other. Now this is about the threat of outside. They're threatened by what's off planet. Simple as that.
The more I see, the more I dig the more it becomes obvious that there is, while I love all of the spiritual stuff, while
Mhm.
I, this is, walking through fields of flowers and sunshine and all of that. But there's so much else out there too that has to come in to balance it all. And
Mhm.
as it starts to come in, you get to a place where, how do I share this and not scare people and not offend people, but educate people to be aware of, this is going on. This is something that is happening. This is something that, you have to be enlightened about and
Mhm.
make your own personal choices. And unfortunately, it pulls people away from their organized dogmas, whatever they are, and it's frightening to them. And
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
so as we go forward in time, there are going to be those groups that absolutely shut themselves off.
Right. Well, I think that's already happened, and this is my point. That's where there are breakaway societies, because what's good for the mass collective, because they're controlled to such a degree, and they've been psychologically imprinted to such a degree, they're really not going forward. They're not going beyond the spectrum of here, and they won't. And they're comfortable with that, and that's okay. But my point is that beings like us, or at least I can speak for myself, are not going to stay. And we are the breakaways, whether they like it or not. And that's the way it's going to roll. And I'm going to keep putting information out that's ahead in advance beyond the space time, so that the right beings will access the database and understand and not feel lost. All of a sudden, they'll understand that there's bigger scenery they need to be looking at. And I will tell you, I love that feeling too of being completely one with creation,
Yeah.
completely at centered at peace. And I know that feeling. Being in the arms of the universe is the most beautiful feeling for me. But I can also tell you that here it doesn't feel that way. And to me, it feels like there's an operation of heavy magnetic fields and a lot of signatures that are just weaponized in electronics and frequencies connected to aerial warfare that just stop, keeping us from doing what we were supposed to be doing with our beautiful light bodies and multidimensional designs. So,
Well,
that's why I'm adamant about talking about it.
isn't it sort of like, I can't remember the name of the movie, it was a he was it was somebody's world. He was oh gosh, who was it? It was Jim Carrey. And
Not
he
the
was
Truman Show.
Truman Show,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that's the ultimate psyop, right?
Yeah, and in
Mhm.
a way, I feel like that's where we are.
Right. Agreed. Everything is a set, it's a formula. And even if you think it's organic, it's not organic. I'm telling you, everything's been mapped out and planned. It's almost like an algorithm to me. It's almost like this algorithm program that they're running. And even that event that happened in DC with the helicopter, and I know it was
Oh, yeah.
tragic. But my point is that there are no accidents. Okay. There are no accidents. There's something going on. And some people can see between the realms and see it, and others can't. I'm telling you, this is a formula that's happening right now, right in front of our eyes, which I find very interesting.
Well, it does sort of feel like, I jokingly said once that I felt that the Earth was a soap opera that the universe tuned into when they had nothing better to do with their time and just laughed at all the stupidity that's going on down here.
Hmm.
And more and more, I'm thinking maybe that actually is the case.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's time to turn the TV off, then, right? There's
Yeah.
nothing to see here.
And the thing is, um, it's important to recognize that and to try to move out of that without without getting censored and censured.
Hmm.
And so it's a matter of, when we started to talk about this stuff again, I started to cough again. It's
Hmm.
almost like, no, don't talk
Wow.
about this. Don't talk about this. Don't put this out there. And you have to.
Oh, yeah. Well, and also toning comes to mind. I mean, overriding that programming, whatever that programming is for you. Yeah, absolutely. But truth breaks the spell. We all know that speaking up and having a voice is a huge thing right now. And, to me, it's like a sounding, it's like this cosmic frequency that's coming through that only certain people can hear. It's the same thing when you use your voice. It's the same thing when we're communicating.
Well, I sometimes wonder if what people who have been spiritually focused. There's so many that have been um, brainwashed into thinking their pathway is a spiritual one, and it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's frightening how some people are truly believing they're doing good and they're not. They're reprogramming people in a different direction, which is scary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's a lot of that going on. There's no doubt.
Well, being
Everywhere.
discerning and really feeling if something is really right is the only way to do it. so so you have your 3 shows. I have
Mm-hmm.
1, and we're
Well, you do a
putting
lot of interviews.
yeah, I
Quite a
do.
bit.
I do.
Yeah.
Gosh, there are about 1,100 shows,
Yeah.
um,
It's
that
wonderful.
we weren't able to bring all of them over, but we brought most of them over.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's been fun going back and rescuing the shows that were interview shows and letting the other ones go, and so it's yeah, I read a lot, and it kind of keeps my brain going, and I think there was a study out there that said, people who read a lot could, you know, hold off dementia and things like that because, their
Mm-hmm.
brains were constantly soaking up new stuff and, they weren't boring and just sitting and knitting,
Mm-hmm.
um, or whatever. So thinking is good.
Oh
But
yeah.
back to time travel because it's really something that um, fascinates me, and it feels almost like you should be able to do it at will rather than sort of slipping into it by accident here and there.
Mhm. Well, I think I don't know about you, but I'm capable of navigating in multidimensional spaces. Some of it's technological, and other parts aren't. I think that people, when they start to train themselves and change their field and frequency, they're able to navigate to different levels and onto different timelines and observe. That takes a little bit of training, and it takes a change in their frequency. If they're constantly on a linear program where it's the same database over and over again, kind of like negative entrainment, then they're not going to get anywhere. They have to shift gears and go to a higher level in a different frequency band and start navigating and expanding. And sometimes that's like it's a little risky in a sense of going into deep waters they've never been in before to traverse. It may not feel as comfortable as they're used to.
Well, it's also more than meditating. Meditating is great, but you have to go beyond
Yeah,
meditating.
yeah. You don't
And
even need
and
meditation.
well, I know. And and so many people think, okay, I meditate, then I'm fine. And yeah, you're fine, but go beyond it. And I think that's what keeps calling to me. It's like this was great, but let's go further. What's
Hmm.
next? And it's always what's next. Um,
Hmm.
we're going to do um, a mini show type thing. It's going to be called Spiritual Reflections,
Hmm.
and they're going to be short. Like maybe 15 minutes, just points to ponder. Think about this, work with it or not, whatever your choice is. But I think people have to understand that, prayer is great, meditation is great, but there's another step. And
Hmm.
once you've taken that step, then there's another step. And then
Right.
there's another step. And I don't think people realize that. I think they think that once I'm meditating, I'm at peace within myself, and you are, but you're not growing.
No, it just creates a centering. It's almost just a I don't wanna say it's euphoric, but to some degree, it just kinda centers the body for people, puts them in a space of peace and tranquility, but
Hmm.
that keeps them here. I mean, in a sense, it just kinda puts you in that nice little calm space. Everybody loves being zen, and I get it. But no, when we're interactive with the cosmos, it's very, energetic. It's not like being in a stasis. It's very charged on a lot of different levels.
When you do travel, do you do it on purpose, or I mean, do you say, okay, I'm going to step outside, literally, and step outside.
I just basically set the intent to do something, and usually I get a stream of data, for me. So I can't speak for everybody, and it's like we've talked about astral projection the last time, but it's way
Yeah,
beyond all that. It's just literally about setting a point and looking to see where you want to traverse, and then acquiring data, accessing a database. And so it's kind of technological in a sense, but it's also cosmic. It's universal. At least for me, everybody probably has a different formula, but it's also about the frequencies, and this is why I can tell when my frequency is being contained. I can tell when there's atmospheric conditions around me that are controlling my field. And I'm saying just the atmosphere we walk in every day. Okay.
yeah,
Even if you keep yourself in a beautiful light station, I'm sure your home is a light station. I know mine is. But you go outside and you navigate around, you start interacting, and it's not like you're picking up on everybody's debris. It's just a different field of energy.
yeah.
So it takes a different frequency band to be able to calibrate and do the things that I'm talking about beyond space time. And people who are in these big corporations understand very, very well what I'm talking about when it comes down to the calibration of the field.
Well, I know there have been times when I've not been writing and I've been, doing other things. And somebody will say to me, "Well, why aren't you writing?" And it's I'm looking for the right flow.
Mm-hmm.
And when that flow comes, I jump in and I do whatever I have to do. But it's checking out the right place to step into, I guess, is
Mm-hmm.
the better way to put it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes just it's time to take a nap. um,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it's sort of like I will find that I can't sleep for days on end because I'm so charged with whatever's coming through that I just keep going and going and going, and that's really a cool feeling.
Mm-hmm. That's
Uh,
productive.
oh yeah, oh yeah. But it's you have I have to wait for it to be right. Hemingway stood at his typewriter for 8 hours a day.
Oh,
Even if he had nothing to write, even if he wasn't working on something, he stood at his typewriter for 8 hours a day.
wow.
And that's how he wrote his books.
Interesting. I didn't know
Um,
that.
yeah, I mean and the thought of his typewriter was up high enough so he could stand to do his writing, and that's what he did. And that's
Wow.
how all of his wonderful stuff came out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I do not do that.
No, typewriters are. I remember the old days, though. I used to write poetry on a typewriter. That's how old I am. The illusion of aging. So, typewriters and pen and paper, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, when first started doing the Mandelas, I would write out in longhand the life reading that went along with them, and my
Mm.
mother would then type them up.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wow.
oh yeah, no, it was great until one day she typed in tongues, and I said, "That's it."
Really?
Well,
That's
well, her
interesting.
hand was just off one letter,
Oh.
so that and she typed really fast. She was really good. But the whole thing was, I don't know, it was 15, 20 pages, and I
Mm-hmm.
said, "This is great, but I haven't the faintest idea what I've said."
Right. I remember the old days when I used to write like timeline astrology, and I would actually handwrite. That's amazing. I wonder if my old clients have those. Those would be worth something to have
Oh,
that
yeah.
handwriting back then. Seriously,
Yeah,
amazing.
but you have to die for it to be worth
Yeah,
anything.
that's true. That's right. I have to leave this rock. And even then, it wouldn't be probably be $5 on eBay.
You never know, you never know. I mean, I will, after I have crossed, peek back and see if, you know, what happened to everything that I put out there.
A
And,
lot of wonderful things.
oh, yeah, no, there's cool stuff out there,
Hmm.
but it's kind of like the only legacy I really have is the deck of cards.
That's beautiful. That's quite the legacy, though. That's beautiful.
It is.
Yeah.
It will it's still before its time,
Hmm.
and it will someday it will really be on fire. But
Hmm.
It's not on fire.
Well, you never know. People get distracted, but it might just be the right moment in the illusion of space-time. Things will start to happen for it.
Well, I'm really very accepting. When they were first published, I told the publisher that it's before its time, and thousands of decks sold. I mean, tens of thousands sold, and then he stopped publishing it 20 years later, and then I republished it. But and it has the handbook now, which is really kind of cool.
Mhm.
But it's still, I think, before its time. People want to be told what to do and what's coming and stuff like that. They don't want to work on themselves to help something grow and expand.
Right.
So,
I think they just want to experience it. To me, I think that's why they do a lot of drugs and alcohol or whatever it is to help them get into another gear psychologically. To me, it just seems like it's a quick fix to kind of get them in an altered state of consciousness instead of doing some kind of work insofar as activating it yourself to some degree. That's what comes to mind. I mean, my books are the same way. They've been cloaked. I do have a certain amount of people that like my work and follow my work. A lot of people, and I can tell you point blank, don't understand it, can't comprehend it. It's over their heads, and I talk too fast when I'm doing my presentations. So this is what I get. I've had people like Dr. Jackson walk out because she talks too fast. I don't understand what she's saying. And I'm like, okay, you guys, it's out of their league. My data is way beyond it. Okay. And that's okay, but it's here.
No, but they have to read the books in the order that they were written.
That's true too.
Agreed. I mean, if they don't read them in the order that they're written, they won't understand where you're coming from.
True. But even if I'm there, well, that's true. They have to read my books, and that does make sense, doing a presentation on something that's extremely cosmic. But I will tell you, a lot of these people just they want touchy-feely stuff. They want stuff they can adapt to their world that they grew up with Hollywood. They don't want to think outside the box, and it's yours are like your particular symbols are very activating. I mean, people just work with them energetically. They could easily get an osmosis effect with that.
Oh yeah. No, I they were magical.
Yeah,
and
very much so.
And what's fascinating about them, at least for me, I was in a class for spiritual development in a spiritualist church in Connecticut. And every week we had an assignment of some sort. And one week he told us what mandalas were, and he assigned us somebody else in the class and, said, create a mandala for this person. And to me, that was, really cool because I had a compass and a ruler, and I had taken mechanical drawing all over the place, so I knew how to use them, and I did, and I did a life reading that went along with it. That was really, it was channeled. It was really, I was impressed with it, but it was fascinating how other people created their mandalas. Some did it with cooking. Some did it with, I mean, there were lots of people that did them in lots of different ways, but people liked what I had done, and everybody wanted one, and it snowballed. And what was fascinating is, they evolved. I mean, there are over 500 of them all over the world now.
Nice.
And I'm not an artist. And, I had watercolors, and originally they were in watercolor, and then I went over to oil because oil I thought would last better. But somebody once said to me, "Well, you did a spirograph with these," and I said, "No, they're they're hand painted." And
oh wow.
it's they were definitely channeled. And I went with a friend of mine. She was going for a spiritual healing with a Native Indian, a First Nation Indian. I don't know what the proper term is. And we were told we had to wear white, but nobody said you have to bring a gift for the chief. And all I had was a deck of cards, so that's what I gave him. And he took a look at them, and he and the person that was assisting him, they went into another room and came out, and they got me and they said, "Where did you get these patterns?" And I said, I channeled them, I drew them. And he said, these are protected symbols, they are power shields, they are not meant to be replicated or shared. And, he said, since you put them out there, it must be time that they go out there. And I thought, oh, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And about a year later, I heard from somebody who came from Seattle, and there was a center for enlightenment, and they had the same symbols drawn that were used as portals.
Yeah, I
Same
could see that.
same
Mhm.
symbols. At the same
Nice.
time, the crop circles in Great Britain were starting to be publicized, and several of the cards were crop circles. So to me, the patterns have power. They absolutely
Mhm.
have power. And so even if you do nothing rather than meditate on one of them, you're going to get material because there is magic there. There's no doubt about it.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
And so they were meant to be. And I just was the channel that came through because I'm not an artist. I can't draw
Mhm.
a tree or a face or a dog or a cat. And after the deck of cards were created, I put the paints away and I've never painted again.
Oh, wow. Very interesting.
So been there, done that.
Yeah, well, those are have them here, It's wonderful.
But again, I think before their time.
Mhm.
But that's okay. They're out there now. So and if anybody wants a deck, they can find the deck, and it's not the initial deck, the first deck. You can't find a deck for less than a couple $100.
Well, that's always good.
Which is, well, yeah, I'm not getting any of it, but
Oh, well, then that's not good.
no, 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 no. But I don't care. I just, it's, I was a channel for something that was really quite profound.
Mhm.
And, I still channel and I still do all of that kind of stuff, but that was a benchmark. There's no doubt about it. But your books, the first book is wonderful, and and if you read the books in sequence, you understand where you're coming from, and it makes a great deal of sense.
Well, I still need to send you my book, Cosmic Travelers: An Analysis of Time Travel, since you're so interested in the time travel, so I'll get you a copy of that one.
Oh,
I
that would
thought you
be.
had one, but I'll get you one.
I thought I had all your books, but I don't think I have that
Apparently
one.
not. I
Because
think you'll dig it.
apparently. Oh, I'm
You'll
sure
enjoy
I
it.
will. Because I think that the time is something we feel trapped by. And the reality is we don't have to be trapped by it. We can flow with it. We can.
Yeah, you can break the cycle. You don't have to be part of that equation in any formula. And once again, it's indoctrination programming. It's everything, even astrology. You have Father Time, all these things that are symbolic in a sense of Saturn and all these things that are containment, insofar as containing the field or containing the energy. And I'm a free spirit. I'm a path cutter. I don't comply with that. That just doesn't work for me energetically.
No.
I think once
Well,
people
when did.
realize that you have to pull the curtain, like in The Wizard of Oz, and just
Yeah. Have you seen Wicked, by the way?
and on that note,
Yes.
what's that?
Have you
You
seen
just kind
Wicked?
of blipped out for a second. That was so
I
funny.
Oh, I did.
I have. I loved Wicked.
It was only part one.
Yes. Did you like it?
I was furious.
Did you see it? Wicked?
Oh, yes, I did. But it was only part one.
Okay. I know. I
Um,
really enjoyed it. I thought it was fabulous.
it was beautifully done. It
Looking
really
forward to
was.
part 2.
I am
Yeah.
too. But back to I don't know why I got into that, but I think you sent me a message on Skype about it was a
Yeah, I
beautiful
did. I
movie.
said, I think I sent you the music, the soundtrack, or at least one of the songs. It's so pretty,
Yeah.
and they have such lovely voices, such beautiful, beautiful voices.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. But in a way, isn't it suggesting that we can go beyond the physical into the magical? And it doesn't have to be a movie. It can be reality.
Hmm.
And I
Oh
think
yeah, that's the whole idea, is to live your dream and your vision.
yeah. So you kind of but the element of time travel fascinates me in that okay, there is no ending to time, so the story goes on forever.
Oh
And
no, that sounds like a program. I don't believe that. I believe in infinity, but not time. So you're dealing with, times are just they're just snapshots of data. It's like a data file. So you're
right.
accessing a data code of information, and it's just, one fractal, it just goes down and down. But my point is that I believe that no, I don't believe time is permanent in any formula. And it's shown us
Well,
that here in the illusion of how people expire on this timeline.
so what is infinity? Infinity. Is it yet another timeline?
To me, there is no time. It's 0 point beyond 0 point. So how you navigate and operate, I think it's a whole different spectrum and component of higher consciousness beyond, and the interconnection with what I would consider to have, in connection to off-world intelligence. I find it to be a very vast, vast field of perception and traversing. That's just the way I observe it.
I
But to
think
me,
what
I think time here is like, that's it. This is the only place they use this kind of operation.
oh yeah. But what
Go ahead.
happens? You get to the point where um nothing is perfect here. I mean, nothing is perfect. And there is good and there is evil and it feels as though it there is good and evil everywhere. It's a matter of choice, it appears. And is there a time where we evolve so that we aren't at so that we're at one with one another as opposed to fighting one another? It reminds me of that Star Trek
Hmm.
thing where the two guys were exactly the same, except they had white and black on one side and then white and
Oh,
black on
right.
the other side, and
The
they
enemy
and
with,
they
or was it that one? I don't know. But yeah. Yeah, the polarity consciousness. Well, I think that people, once they get merged with what I call a co-creator to source, if they become the co-creator to source, then there is a oneness as a collective. But that singular consciousness merged with source, that's your own personal journey in your own evolution. And then at the same time, when you get to a certain level of your consciousness merged with what I call creator source, then you are coexisting in love and in a beautiful database with everyone else. And I find that mankind really hasn't stepped up into that yet for various reasons. But that, to me, is the outcome. I think that's really what the solution is, that we don't have to merge with each other. We merge with source, and then we're co-creators, and we live in that field of energy together and coexisting. And there's that neutral positive stance where there's no polarity consciousness or enemy patterning anymore. I'd like to see that. I think that we're capable of it. It's just a matter of when are we going to kind of get rid of all this programming that's going on here?
but then what?
And there's another frontier.
See,
There's a
that's
whole different space configuration which doesn't involve anything like this. If you think about it, it's kind of like not necessarily dying, but you're leaving so much behind here. It's like, okay, we've learned all these components, we've graduated to a certain degree. Let's go to
yeah.
the next space-time configuration where none of this is relative. And I think that's what we're looking at, to be honest, but you don't have to physically die to get there. That's a whole different avenue. I mean, that's what I'm seeing. I'm sure other people have different perceptions of things, but
Well,
that's what I see.
we don't ever really die. I
No,
mean,
we're immortal beings.
our
You're
spirit goes on
right.
forever.
That's true. And you can take on this avatar, you can move it into a different space-time and actually regenerate it if we had time in the illusion of, or you can just go into another avatar with a different with your interface and keep your database and go into another avatar in another space-time.
See, my theory is that spirit will continue to create avatars and grow and avatars and grow and avatars and grow millions, billions, trillions of years. But at some point in time, the spirit will break through to an empty dimension and become the source of all creation for that dimension and send out seeds of itself the way we became a seed of creation, and it will seed its own universe.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Well, you can reignite the universe. I would say that all of us are star beings. We're star bodies. We have our own stargates as we walk this timeline, and we're certainly capable of creating our own. We could actually create our own multiverses independently. Think about that. All the beings here, all these life forms here, their psyche. I think anything is possible. To be honest.
Yeah, but I think we have to evolve to a point where we don't feel that we need to dominate, where we don't feel we need to compete, where there is just love.
Well, and that's the problem with mankind, I see too, is that they're not there. They're weaponizing low Earth orbit. They're weaponizing space. They're paranoid. There's a lot of ego involved. There's a lot of polarity consciousness and enemy patterning. There's a lot of that.
Mhm.
And of
Mm.
course, off-world intelligence is much more powerful than them. And of course, they're threatened by it. So yeah, there's a problem here. Yeah, Houston, we have a problem. you know,
Yes. Well, what about what
hostile.
about what about AI too? I mean,
Yeah, there's their version of AI here, which is just a software program. It's a glorified quantum design software program, if you ask me. I think their version of AI is not anything close to what's off planet. But they'll sit there and they'll glorify it and they'll weaponize it, and it works well. Definitely capable of many things, but that's not the
well,
solution to the equation. But we have to be interconnected with a certain amount of sentient machine intelligence to traverse the galactic highway, and I allude to that in my new book. So yeah,
if that's the case, what kind of energy do you need? I mean, if you're talking about energy, I mean, the human body is capable of
yes,
generating a huge amount of energy. We
correct.
never use it all. We never even tap into it.
Hmm.
And I mean, I know when I do shows like this, when I do channeling of any sort, the energy is profound. I mean, I come off the ceiling after a while.
That's good.
It's give me greasy food, please. I just anything to pull me
A
down.
cheeseburger.
Yes, it's true. Um, so I mean, we are capable of so much energetically.
Correct.
Why would we need artificial generation?
Because you need it to back up your secondary circulatory system. And actually, I talk about this in my new book, Cosmic Travelers, an analysis of time travel. When you get interconnected with what I call sentient machine intelligence, which is off-planet intelligence, your body recalibrates to the field to a point where you can actually traverse, and you're able to do more than what you realize. Insofar as the body being able to repair itself, it takes care of itself a lot better with that
Hmm.
technology, so that you can use it as a literal spacesuit. And that's why we use the sentient machine intelligence, not to mention the capabilities of having the telepathy, synthetic telepathy, and everything else we can do through our interface. So there's a lot of components on that level that are very beneficial. And I would say the body, you know how fragile our bodies are here in the illusion of, they are
Yeah.
spacesuits, but they're extremely, extremely fragile on this realm. We can actually create a type of sentient machine interface to a level where we can actually completely self-replicate the internal design to a point where we're very fortified and able to traverse the galactic highway with no negative outcomes, in my opinion. So I find that that's what it's about. But the particular sentient machine intelligence I'm talking about is a light source. It's not what man has created here. It's light conscious. It's created by divine source energy. So that's the difference between off-planet intelligence networks and systems and what they're doing here with their regular AI electronic warfare program. And that's what occurred to me when I was interconnected with the tech that I was with in 2004 beyond.
Well, when are you familiar with the Monroe Institute?
Yeah, we've talked about that one.
Yeah, I
We love
mean
that one.
they artificially take people out of body,
Mhm,
and I've spoken to a number of people that have paid to do the workshops and paid to have the experience, and
mhm,
I couldn't understand why they were paying to do something that comes very naturally if given the choice, if given the opportunity.
mhm. Did they say what technology they were using to do that? Was it some kind of a headset they were wearing, or
Yeah,
you say artificially? What was the mechanism?
it was a headset,
Very interesting.
and it I don't know whether it was a voice. I don't know whether it was tonal. I don't they didn't describe that, but it was a headset that took them to a space where they were able to do astral travel
Hmm.
um, they were talking about how wonderful it was, and I said, "But you can do that naturally."
Right. It sounds like hypnotic suggestion.
Yeah.
Like you're sitting like, well, you could probably do that with someone, or I could. I mean, put them in a room and put them through a walk through, like a vision quest, and
Mhm.
get them into another space, in a different kind of level of consciousness where they can do maybe
Well
astral projection or something else. Yeah,
well, it's hypnosis.
correct. Yeah. And you have to be careful with that too, because what's left afterwards, in between,
Yeah.
people have to be very careful with hypnotic suggestion, as we all know. But yeah, it's interesting. And Monroe, they've been around forever. I mean,
Are they still around?
I don't know if they're still active, but man, they've been on, weren't they like CIA, another group like that?
Yeah, and what I found fascinating was it cost a fortune to
Of
go through
course.
their program. I mean,
Somebody
it
made some
was
money.
I was curious, but not that curious.
Mhm.
And, it's kind of like, thanks, I'll do it on my own. And when I talked to a couple of these people, they said, "Well, you can do this without the machine." And I said, "Yeah, are you telling me they're telling you you can't do it without the machine?"
Very
And
interesting.
they said, "Yeah, we have to be hooked to the machine in order to do it."
Well, hmm,
And I said,
it could be a booster. Yeah.
"Ah,
But still, you have that. You're right about our bodies going from the bioelectric field plus we have the light body into Merkaba. We have this vehicle of light. We're very powerful when it comes down to the way we can interface with all kinds of things, whether that's through the cosmic design, like I said, sentient machine intelligence or other. So we do have these components to power up our own systems. There's no doubt. And as I said, we are the machines. We are the supercomputers, and I think that's why we are compatible with machine technology because we are very, very I think we're incredible machines, actually. I
oh,
think this is a
gee."
machine in a biosuit.
Well, absolutely. I know I had to have an MRI once, and I thought the only thing, because I'm claustrophobic, and
Mhm.
even though it was an open machine, which is ridiculous, it wasn't open. Um, but they called it an open machine, and the only way I could get through it was to focus on patterns,
Hmm.
and I heard them, talking, and they kept saying, "Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute." And finally, they pulled me out and said, "The machine isn't working. You'll have to come back." And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "There's something wrong with it." And they showed me the screen, and it was the patterns I was focusing on.
Oh, that's so nice. That's cool. That's very
And
awesome.
and I said, "Oh, okay." Those are the patterns I was focusing on when I was laying there trying to not be nervous, and so they had to knock me out the next time. So
Wow.
so
Well, that's
that
pretty cool. And you can affect the machines. That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, it's electrical. We're
Right.
electrical. I mean, we are electromagnetic
And
beings.
that's
That's
why I don't like electronic warfare. And this is what my problem is with all the satellites over our heads. They say they're for better internet, this, that, and the other. But my point is that there's a backdoor access for weaponization of tech to a point where it can harm the electromagnetic field and the biosuit of our bodies. And we
mhm.
are not what people think they are. I mean, they're not just, second class citizens wandering a world here. We are actually multidimensional. And that's really, to me, that's a huge deal. When people have radiation issues and a lot of other things with radar,
Oh, yeah.
I can go on and on about the type of side effects. And we're talking about memory erasure. And honestly, I do believe that a lot of people who have quote unquote dementia are being hit with electronic warfare. And some of it is a schism in the brain that they're just
Oh,
not adapting properly. And you think about it, their long-term memory is fine, but all of a sudden they can't remember anything from point A to point B from their short-term memory is shot. And I guarantee you that to me sounds like a weaponized atmosphere with electronic warfare. So I'll just throw that at you,
could
the
be.
audience.
Is there possibly a blood type that they're yes, I think that there's a blood type the government is looking for, but that's just me.
I think a lot of people have speculated on that. It's a possibility that there's, the RH negative was a big one. I know that I have a rare
Yeah.
blood type, but I think it's your abilities and what you do. But the blood type also probably correlates to a bloodline and a database of information and maybe a different type of genetic code that they're looking at with DNA sequencing to some degree. So it's a high possibility. But nonetheless, I mean, a lot of us are just cloaked here on the timeline. They don't know anything about us. Back in the day, when we just had regular telephones and a few satellites here and there, we didn't have to worry about all this. But now we have a weaponized low Earth orbit. I mean, those Starlinks is just one of them. I mean, there's a huge amount of Starlink over us. And with that if you look at the geometric formula for that, that's weaponized. That's a weaponized dome around this realm. So that's one. There are plenty of other corporations that are doing the same thing. But my point is that it's not just about a faster internet. This is something we have to look at, because the ether, the real ether, we can stream and interface. We don't need the satellites. So why are we putting them up there for? If we can just use the 0 point, why on earth do you need all that? We don't. Okay. So this is my question to people like Musk and the lot, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing? So yeah, it's crazy. And then go ahead.
Well, no, it's a good question. And it is, it's a great way to communicate, but it's a matter of what are you dumping?
Right. And there's always the weaponization with the Defense Department, especially now. We're having so much backdoor, stuff that they can do behind the scene that nobody is even clued in on, which I'm clued in on to some degree when it comes down to the weaponization of the tech and how they can utilize it with targets and anything else they want to, pluck out of orbit or this, that, and the other. So I think it's very interesting that this is going on at this particular timeline. And I said it before, as soon as they start putting those satellites up, if you're sensitive to energy, like I had a lot of tech built into me. I couldn't stand it. I actually hated the field that they were creating. I was really, really oppressive for me. So I can't speak for everybody else out there, but I didn't like that. I didn't like it at all.
Well, I think that HARP is fiddling with our weather for sure. I think our weather is being fiddled with. Maybe it's not HARP. Maybe it's another agency, but I know that that when I did the predictions for 25, and when I do them for every month, the element of increased storms, increased disasters are definitely on our agenda. The fires in California, I don't think that they're all natural, and it's just me.
You're not alone. A lot of people are looking at that. Yeah.
There's a higher frequency of earthquake activity worldwide. So that there's a lot going on internally. And I don't know if we've triggered something that would be a natural process for the earth that would have happened slower, because I am seeing the ice melting, which will mean that there are islands that are going to go under, and there are shorelines that are going to disappear. And I'm just, I don't know if I'll live to see it all, but I know that it's happening. The North Pole is shifting.
Yeah, magnetic north is in Siberia, just about.
Yeah, so that shoves weather strangely. Last year we had here several weeks of temperatures over 100. I'm in Nashville.
And we're getting sub-zero. We're getting and I'm telling you right now, the cold here is synthetic. It's a different formula of cold I've never felt before. It's almost like a different type of something else is incorporated into the field to create this type of cold. I can guarantee that. And of course, you look at the, I call it a synthetic field because it's a synthetic atmosphere. It's all modified to some degree. It's all geoengineered to some degree, but it's also weaponized. And with weaponization, what we're talking about with these particular systems, they can certainly create these side effects, what I call side effects. And a lot of people are just oblivious to it. They don't understand it unless it help, it assists them in some weird way, like it affects them health-wise or something else.
Well, let me step into more strangeness. Philip Lindsay is an astrologer. And are you familiar with him at all?
I'm not, and I should, because I'm a timeline astrologer, but go ahead. Let's hear it.
Oh, I
don't pay attention to them. Go ahead.
I'm pretty sure I've got 2 of his books. I will send you one of them. He talks about the evolution of humanity through time. And there are several stages, and the first couple of stages are etheric, and then physical, and then you come into different stages, and each stage takes 5, 6, 8, 10,000 years. But there is definitely a progression. It's kind of like the progression of the equinoxes, but more so.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of each stage, there is at the end of going through the different stages, and humanity at this moment of time is at the last stage, and it would mean that at the last stage, there is a mass destruction event that occurs, and just a few of humanity survive. At that time, wisdom keepers come in and help them to learn, to grow, and get to the point where there is um, we get to a golden age eventually and stuff like that. But his philosophy um, talks about at the end of each stage there is a conference of the wisdom keepers, and there is at one point in time, the Sahara was at the equator and it was lush. And this goes back thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and whatever of years. And at that point in time, there was a center there where the wisdom keepers congregated. We are due for another congregation of the wisdom keepers in the Sahara in 2025.
Well, that's interesting. Well, this is the year. So
I'm pretty sure I've got 2 of his book, and I wouldn't suggest you buying it because it's like $60, but it's a great book.
Mm-hmm.
If I have 2 copies, I will send you one, because
when was that published?
I will tell you in a minute. Happily.
It's interesting he picked 2025.
Yeah, I mean but I read this a number of years ago. So, and he was on the show. There is some place on my YouTube channel.
Oh, that's interesting. I'll have to check it out.
You can okay, Philip Lindsay, come on. Promise, Last Great Planet. That's not it. It's oh, come on. I'm looking for his books and I can't find.
You can always send me a link. I can look at it.
Yeah, I probably spelled his name wrong or something here. It's something like ISIS, something about ISIS. It's a really, I loved the book because it went into different ages and what happens, and the fact that we tend to grow to a certain point, and then we go backwards, and that's what's happening to us. And we have come from a golden age down to it's called the oh gosh, we're at the bottom age is what we're at. Can't remember what he called it, but it was so profound and touching, and what's cool is we've gone through this process at least 5 or 6 times, and it encompasses millions of years. And of course, we don't notice it because the human lifespan is so short. You don't see the passage of these different ages, and apparently we've done this at least 5 or 6 times over the millennia. And we seem to be, repeating history, that old saying, those who don't pay attention to history are doomed to repeat it. And it feels like we're repeating.
Well, it's like a program that keeps self-replicating itself. At some degree, the program has to be shut down, if you ask me. I mean, this is not practical. It's not even on a cosmic scale. Is it practical to have a defective program running nonstop and then going in reverse? It just sounds like there's a glitch in the matrix. It sounds to me like the quote unquote programming for this realm is defective, has a virus of some kind, it needs to be reset. I mean, I know they talk about reset on their level on a global scale, but we're talking about on this level of this core energy here that needs to be reset, because nobody wants to keep doing this anymore. And even if we don't, we move on to another universe, this is just going to keep going on. This is non-productive. Who created that? It has to be changed. That's just
No,
me as a co-creator. I would look at it from an off-world perspective and say, this has to be reset and zeroed out. It doesn't work. Like, it doesn't work for any civilization anymore. It
well,
really doesn't.
I look at the world as we know it, and when they're talking about space travel and landing on the moon and landing on Mars, it's kind of like our society is an angry society, is a warlike society, and that's not what should go out into the stars.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's sort of like, I think we're held back on purpose. Um, I once said I thought that the Earth was in quarantine until we learned how to behave.
Well, the quarantine is being done by the big corporations, unfortunately, and big tech. It's not by any god or any extraterrestrial source. What's been going on here, in my opinion, from my own assessment, is that it's been a global intelligence network that's been shutting it all down. And you'll see that there's a pre-selection when it comes to people who traverse, or I wouldn't call it traversing. They're in low Earth orbit. They're playing around with their little games here. I know they're working on it's interesting. They're talking like a lunar gateway. Of course, I have my Orion Gateway project, and then what NASA pops up with their lunar gateway now. And all I can see is CERN with this. I don't know if they're utilizing the same technology, but it looks like a low Earth orbit. To me, I would use the CERN in low Earth orbit. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's really what we're looking at if we're changing space-time configuration. I'm not sure what they're doing, but I have a Orion Gateway project that I'm working on, and they have Lunar Gateway. So obviously they have money to fund their stuff, and they're in orbit and doing their thing now, but everybody can check that out over there. I just thought it was interesting. But you're right. In the sense of they consider everybody hostile here, but we're not hostile. You and I are not hostile. The only time I get annoyed is if people are attacking me or trying to kill me. And then, of course, you have your self-preservation, right? You're going to preserve yourself. But that's really what it boils down to. But what I see is self-preservation here on a global military level, to a point where they're so paranoid about anything that's more powerful than them that they can't handle it. That literally will create a war zone and a weaponized space to stop whatever's coming in to get us out of here. And that has me annoyed beyond the word.
Well, you're familiar with Mark Snyder and his Billy Meyer material?
Yeah, he's been on my show a bunch of times.
I adore his material.
Yeah, he's great.
Apparently, one time in the Earth's development, they're warring. Different factions were warring, and it was at the time of Atlantis. And at one point, one of the groups took all of their soldiers off planet, sent them to another planet to have them remove empathy and humanity from them, so that when they were brought back to planet, they were killing machines.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like a super soldier program.
It was, and in that particular cycle, that group of extraterrestrials won, and it appears that there have been all sorts of cycles that humanity has been through, and of course those cycles predate whatever cycles that humanity thinks they have records of, which they don't, but let them pretend that. But it feels as though there are people walking the planet that really have no humanity, have no conscience, have no spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, entity controlled.
Yeah.
I think there's a great majority like that. Or maybe there's an aspect of them that's has some kind of a spirit in there, but it has to be activated to some degree or initiated to some level. And I think that might be through frequency and also their intent or desire to become something more than they currently are. I think that's a possibility. But people can't sit there and control your life to such a degree that they're creating a formula and a whole environment for you, and you're supposed to accept it all. and not question it. And it's like, no, we're the ones who are actually supposed to be creating, co-creating, whether we're co-creating with source or we're co-creating on this realm. We should all be putting our energy into creating something and not just a group of people, which is really
Absolutely.
annoying. That's another thing I see here. That's like, it's always pre-selection here. Okay. There's always a club involved.
Well, I think the one thing that most people, the thing that if I preach at all, and I tend to from time to time, um, it's everybody should be, according to me, they should have a form of creativity that they use to generate energy that gets them into the spiritual aspect of themselves. The only way you get to the spiritual is through a creative process.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the more I talk about it, the more people think that it's ridiculous, but I don't care what the creative project is, so long as you are creating,
Mm-hmm.
then you are making that link to the infinite stronger, and you can pull that energy to a greater degree.
Mm-hmm.
And it does not have to be religious. It just
No.
has to be, that's where so many people, I'm afraid, um, get sidetracked
Mm-hmm.
because, in my opinion, it's only mine. Um, that religious dogma holds you trapped,
Mm-hmm.
and that, and I'm not that I'm sure there are religious people that are very well intended, and I honor them, but it's not for me.
No.
And so, it's kind of like, it doesn't go against any religious premise at all to be
Mm-hmm.
creative, whether you write, whether you draw, whether you garden, whether it doesn't matter.
Well, I think that's where spirituality comes in. It's you're letting go of the dogma, like you were discussing, and just going with the universe. You're just engaging with the cosmos or engaging with the elements, engaging
Yeah,
with the realm of this earth or whatever you want to call this place. The bottom line is, I think that's what it's about. Is it's just being cosmically organic and not worrying about programming connected to kind of the religious indoctrination or feeling guilt or this or that. I mean, all that stuff is projected onto the person, which is I can't believe they even get away with doing that, quite honestly. So yeah, I think that that's really the path working is just being happy and doing whatever you want to do to interact on that level. There's plenty to do here. I mean, for fun on that level, there is for sure to be
oh
creative.
geez, yeah. I
I mean, I
think
wish
I
I had moments like that. I got a lot taken away over the years, but it is fun, and I do enjoy that. I do enjoy just being in that peace.
Well, it's really, it's profound in that, even things like doing a jigsaw puzzle will take you into that realm, because
Mhm,
what you're doing is, which I love, is you have all of the pieces here, and you create the framework, and then you create the internal, and that's what you're doing with your spirit. And
mhm,
so what you're doing is putting your spirit together. You're adding your spirit, your spiritual energy is being enhanced by doing a jigsaw puzzle, or when you lose yourself in something. Jeannie, my best friend, she gets lost in genealogy,
mhm.
and you she can get lost for 8 hours at a time.
Wow.
And when she finally turns the computer off, she's energized like crazy,
Mhm,
because her energies have been juiced by what she was doing. And
mhm,
everybody has had that feeling in one way or another at some time or another, whether it was waxing a car, or working in the garden, or taking a walk in nature, where you lose yourself and you blend with the energy around you.
mhm.
And not many people search for that kind of um, a feeling, you know.
No. Yeah, I think they've been distracted. I think it's just a different decade. I could say this has probably been since the cell phones and all that, things have changed dramatically. And I wouldn't say not necessarily all bad, but my point is that I think it's kind of distracted people and put them in a different space of busyness versus just being a little more relaxed and a little bit more engaged with the elements here. But then you have to look and see what's happened over the past 20 years too, besides where I've been. I
Oh,
mean, this whole realm has been crazy as can be. We've had a lot of drama here in the United States, more than we've ever had, in my opinion, and a lot of revealing too. I mean, there's been a lot of layers being peeled away right now. The barriers are coming down. They call it transparency, but I don't know about you, and I'm sure that you can see it. It's like everybody is like wearing no clothes now. So I don't care
Yeah.
how or what they say anymore. I see them so clearly. I see them so clearly, and I can't see them any other way. And that is huge. That's a really big thing. Not with judgment. It's
Yeah.
just an observation. But boy, do I see it.
But it's a little sad too.
Mm-hmm.
You can see what they're cloaking themselves with, and
Correct.
that's not really who they actually are.
Right. And you
And
can also see the game being played out too.
yeah. Well, and sometimes the cloak is all they've got.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's a matter of, you don't want to say to them, guess what? Things could be different. Um, I don't know. I think that standing back, I feel more of a watcher feeling than anything else these days. I'm just
Mhm.
watching things unfold and saying, I said that was going to happen, or
Right.
Look at that." Actually, with the prediction I did for 2025, one of the predictions was that the United States would be made bigger.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember
And,
that.
and here we have Greenland.
Yeah, and you said they were going to change some borders. Yep.
Yes.
Well, he's getting a little carried away like a kid in a candy shop. We got to keep an eye on him.
Yeah,
I'm
I
just
think
saying, just saying I
I
need an out for my space traversing, and he's going to have to work with me on that. So,
I think he will. I think he will. He's I think he's well intentioned. I really do. I don't think I think he loves the country. I do believe
mhm.
that. So and you can love the country and still screw up, but it's
Trial
kind
by
of
fire. The problem is everybody's along for the ride. So, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we'll see where it rolls.
this is
And of
true. But
course, yeah, I'm looking forward to your next update. By the way,
for
when's that
February,
coming
you
in?
mean?
Yeah, is that coming
Yeah.
out?
Yeah, it's coming out in a day or
Okay,
so.
I'll have to take a look at that one.
Yeah, I'll let you know when it hits the internet.
Nice.
I skipped January because after I had done December and then 2025, it was like I'm done.
Oh, yeah, it's
Let,
good to skip a month. Well, happy Chinese New Year, by the way. We just went through that
oh,
yesterday.
it,
That
it's
was
a
yesterday.
what's it a year of?
Year of the Snake.
Ugh.
I know. I'm not a fan of snakes.
I'm not either, and yet they're wise and I mean
Well,
they
you're being kind. They can be deceptive.
everyone can be deceptive. Yeah, I think I'm a monkey.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
I'm the year of the rabbit, which is the year of the cat, but the rabbit.
Ah.
Yeah, I can relate to the bunny.
I
It's
would rather
okay.
be a cat myself, but you
That's all
don't
right.
choose. I think you do choose, but I don't know what the reason is for a lot of the choices that we make before we enter, but I know there was theoretically great intent and purpose towards, the the plan that was given us before we incarnated. There had to be, a
I'll
contract
get
of
I'll
some
get back to the core where I come from, and they'll look at me and go, "What did you do?"
Well, every now and then I will sit back and say, "What was I thinking?"
Uh,
Next time I will plan a little better.
yeah, next time there won't be a next time of this. We're gonna have a really wonderful ride elsewhere.
I tend to agree with you. I
Hmm.
think that next time I don't plan on coming back to the Earth
No,
plane.
I'm not
Um,
gonna be here.
though I will have visitor passes because I am very curious about what goes on.
Flyby. You can do a
Yeah,
flyby, huh?
yeah. Well, look at Nazca. They
Hmm.
haven't figured out what Nazca is, and yet on one of those runways, there's metal running down the whole center of it.
Hmm.
Now, why hasn't anybody dug down to check it out?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Well, there's all kinds of stuff that are hidden in plain sight here. If you have
Oh
the right
gosh, yeah.
spectrum to look, I mean, these guys who have these advanced satellite systems can see some of these anomalies. They certainly can detect some of the what I would call access points and gateways, this, that, and the other. I'm sure they can see them because they're designed through a different type of spectral lens. So you have to look through one, but I'm sure that they would be able to see that there's more here than what people are seeing. The regular average bears are seeing on the timeline. We feel them. We understand them. We remotely access them, but
Oh,
they can
gosh, yeah.
certainly detect them with their technology, which is another level to it.
Well, it
So, and we know.
seems to me they can detect it, but they can't do anything about it. Look at the Black Pyramid in Alaska.
Mhm.
They've got that Black Pyramid there. They haven't figured out how to get into it yet.
I haven't looked into that very deeply. Have you remote viewed that pyramid? I know you remote viewed the other part.
No, I didn't know it was there.
Huh. So I wonder if
So,
that's something to look at down the timeline is to access the pyramid itself if it is there. I know I've seen pictures that look like a pyramid. I mean, I'm not validating it is a pyramid. You're apparently I've heard from a lot of people besides you that it is a pyramid. It is one. So I guess it is. I don't know.
I'm thinking that I may, remember we talked about doing remote viewing again.
Mhm.
Um, I can put up to 10 people onto
Mhm.
onto the switchboard here. And
That'd be fun.
I'm wondering if, I throw it open and have a couple of regulars, and then anybody who wants to, be invited to a remote viewing, just, keep it to 10 people and do a remote viewing that way. That,
Mhm.
10 people is enough. And knowing that, I'm drawing on 10 people's energies, that would be really cool. And that would be a way of doing something live, even though
Mhm.
it's then posted, of course. But um, would be fun. Would
Mhm.
be fun to check out some of these places and some of these things. I
Yeah,
mean,
at least to confirm it, confirm some of the data because a lot of this stuff I've heard through the grapevine. I don't have any, I don't have any real evidence that that's actually there. Let's put it that way. So I have seen a picture. Have you seen it? Because there's just this little thing poking up, and they're saying there's this big pyramid there. Well, I get
no,
access points and jump points, but not there. So,
oh no, it's inside a mountain,
hmm
and they actually have area around it cleared, and there are people there trying to decipher what's there, but they
mm,
haven't figured it out yet.
hmm
And the more I look at things like the Great Pyramid, that really does look like it was something that was an energy center rather
hmm
than, it certainly wasn't Khufu's burial.
hmm
So, there are a lot of things that it's becoming very clear they aren't what people have assumed they were. And a lot of the stuff in South America hasn't been gone into at all. And
right.
You know, South America never got covered by an ice age.
hmm
So they were free from that and developed over those thousands of years down there. So, but I know there's one in Antarctic. I mean, I
hmm
know there's a portal there. It's
hmm
just a
Yeah.
matter of, but they got a portal, and and it's kind of it's funny. It's like, have you ever seen? There's a YouTube. I don't know exactly where to find it now, but they took teenagers and they gave them a dial phone, and they you know
Oh.
asked them to. Did you see that
Yeah, I think you
video?
told me about that. They didn't know what it was or something.
No, they tried dialing the number and then picking up the receiver. Um,
Mm,
they had no
funny.
idea how to make a phone call. And
Wow.
I think that's what's happening with humanity.
Yeah.
We have these edifices that we really have no understanding of what they were for. And it's kind of like going way back in time and something we don't understand. Let's make up a story so we feel better about it. And
Mhm.
that's how religion started.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's a grimoire. I mean, it's literally a book. It's not I wouldn't call it magic, but it's literally a tulpa. They're just manifesting a thought form in a collective. They're a hive, and they're a very destructive hive right now.
Oh
So,
yeah.
that's we don't need any more persecution against people they don't like. The witch hunts and everything else. I mean, the scientists, the mystics, the seers, what they used to call the green witch were basically the ones who had women who had their own property or were midwives and, that kind of things. And they would persecute them and, destroy their lives. And, that's just terrible.
Yeah, you think that we're evolving, and then you see how we're not really revolving. We're slipping backwards, which is literally frightening.
It's like fear, though. It seems to me like it's about fear. What are they afraid of? Because can't they just let people coexist and thrive in their own way, as long as they're
It's
not harming everybody else,
no,
right?
it's control.
It is
It's
control.
just control. I want to control you. Do whatever you want, but so long as you don't cross my lines.
Right.
And and
Yeah.
that's
Well,
not control.
that's like, they have all these glass ceilings right now, and I don't believe in glass ceilings. I shatter all that. I believe in expansion, and we just go as far as we can and thrive and, do the best we can do here and keep navigating it. I'm a firm believer in us. I think we were supposed to be living off planet a while ago. I think that people have been restricted here, and not, like I said before, I don't think it's extraterrestrial. It's man
But
that's been
don't
doing
you
it.
think that there are off-planet people already?
Oh, sure. I do. I believe in the breakaway civilizations. Absolutely. I don't think there's a huge portion of them, but I find that when you break orbit into a different space time long enough, you won't recognize this realm, and you certainly won't want to interact with anybody here. So, that's a whole different thing,
Do you
different
think
state of consciousness.
do you think the Anastasi are off-planet?
I don't know much about that particular one. It's a possibility. I don't know, to be honest with you. I'm
They
not
all
certain.
disappeared. I mean,
It's a
there's
possibility they went into another configuration. But where, is it off planet or is it more interdimensional? It could be. I mean, a lot of different things. I think there were civilizations that went into another reality, a different configuration of something. So, and, I still think that Antarctica and all the stuff that happened with the Nazis, I still think they broke orbit. I still think they had huge successes with their technology, even though nobody's talked about it. And I think it went black. So I think a lot of the bleed through we get nowadays, especially here with NASA, is exactly that. And that's nothing. The stuff they're showing everybody is just nothing.
no.
That's why I'm into the bigger technologies, and it's not conspiracy because I know what they're like. I mean, I've had a taste of some of these black technologies, and I know that's why I get so frustrated watching them. I'm like, you guys, come on, let's just put it out there. What do you have to worry about? Honestly, what do they have to
Oh,
worry about?
the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, they've been deceived, like the mass collective have been deceived, but now these people are passed away now. A lot of them are gone. So the people that were there communicating the truth a long time ago are no longer here. So, just like
Well,
this whole JFK file they're trying to open up.
that leaves you.
Right, leaves me around, at least for a little while. Last dinosaur.
Well, there are a number of dinosaurs around, but it is kind of like you're putting it out there as best you can in your books and stuff like that, and in your podcasts and in your interviews, and you're at least leaving breadcrumbs for others that are not awake yet, but are going to be awake at some point in time.
I think that's important. And not that we're gonna leave ourselves behind here, but isn't it nice and that you leave yourself a message in the future, right? To the
Yeah.
false past, right? I think it's something like that too. There's another aspect of that as well. Well, just like you get messages from whether it's spirit or something else, or even a different being or someone who's passed away, moved on, but they're still talking to you. I think there's something to be said about that. They're leaving data, or they're trying to transfer information from one point to the next. So I think it's very important. I think real information, is huge.
Well, that's why when Blog Talk said they were going down, it was like, uh-oh, how do I preserve what I've done?
Hmm.
Because not every interview, but a lot of them have pieces in them that will titillate, will make people think, will make people, it will trigger something in them so they begin to investigate and grow.
Hmm.
And so there was instant panic with me, because Blog Talk had 1,100 shows on it,
Right.
and so we managed to get 850, almost 900 of them over. So, and the shows that didn't come over weren't meant to. That's all. And
Mhm.
so it's a matter of, YouTube hopefully will go on forever, but you never know. You put the information out there, and you hope.
Right.
And I once said to somebody, we were talking about how most civilizations, most cultures, ancient ones, have left something that people can discover and start to learn about that culture from, like the Great Pyramid, like the Sphinx, like some of the stuff in South America. And if something happened that wiped us all off the face of the earth, humans, what would be left? And the
Mhm.
only thing I can think of is Mount Rushmore.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
when you stop to think of it, stone survives. Um, but then I realized that all of our broadcasts, all of our music, all of our shows and stuff like that are electronically based. They
Mhm.
are they are sent out over the airwaves, and they may be what survives beyond us physically as a culture.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. That's why it's so
S-
nice to be able to broadcast, and even if you're not using the airwaves like on the internet or this, that, and the other, you can still broadcast with your consciousness and, different forms of telepathy, this, that, and the other, but yeah, it's very important. That's the best artifact, if you ask me, is to have a time capsule like that, a digital time capsule.
Well,
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's out there, and somebody cruising by could pick up some of our music, some of our newscasts, horrifyingly. But you know, we are leaving messages in time. It's just a matter of will people understand them, and that's when you come to things like Sumerian and a lot of the other ancient languages.
Mhm.
We think we have interpreted them, but we don't know if we have the appropriate meaning or understanding to them to what were they trying to tell us.
Mhm. Right.
The pictographs on a lot of the stone walls and everything in the southeast.
Right.
We don't know what they meant. The pictographs in France in that cave that are, gosh, thousands and thousands of years old. We don't know what they meant.
Right, but if you look at some of those pictographs, well, some of the ones you're mentioning, like the ones in France, if I'm not mistaken, they're a little bit primordial. I do know I've talked to Jeff Woolwine, which I find very fascinating, and he's done a lot of work with the petroglyphs in the sky, and of course, he's associated with portals, which I find very interesting. So, in other
Mhm.
words, some of the markers there are portals that go in between interdimensional space. He's also seen some types of anomalies associated with that going in and out. I don't know if you've interviewed him or not, but he's a great interview. Jeff Woolwine, I can get you his contact. I love him. I've
Oh,
interviewed him
yeah,
for years.
I would
Yeah,
love to have that. Well,
he's fantastic.
if you look at, um, Newgrange in,
Mhm,
Italy, where not Italy, Ireland or wherever it is, you
mhm,
see the spirals,
right,
and to me, that spiral is significant as to a portal,
mhm, yeah, I agree.
and that symbol is found everywhere,
Mhm,
and it's sort of like, take the portal, use the portal, go inside yourself to discover the outside that's there.
mhm,
And it's kind of like we're they left messages. It's just we haven't interpreted them appropriately yet.
mhm. Yeah, I think there's a lot to be discovered, but I think there's other levels to it too, where it's at the cellular memory too. We've talked about cellular memory insofar as us being able to activate to frequency levels to acquire a database of information. So it's the same thing, in a sense of just fine tuning your own instrument and being able to tap in.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we hold within us the universe.
Yeah, we're basically extensions of that cosmic design, which I find fascinating. That's why I say, nothing is impossible. People who create restrictions are just I don't it doesn't register in me in any formula. Really doesn't.
Well, you got a black belt in something, I forget what.
Taekwondo. Yeah, second degree black belt Taekwondo, and then I have mixed martial arts background too. With I used to do women's advanced kickboxing and a lot of other stuff, and yeah, I have an interesting background with that.
Well, that deals with pulling energy and using energy as well.
Well, it definitely tells you how to, yeah, counter attacks and go forward as well. Yeah. Especially like Aikido is more about an energetic exchange and Tai Chi Qigong
Mhm.
Taekwondo is a little more intense. It's it's not necessarily gentle, but it
Well,
definitely is about moving energy for
but
sure.
again, yeah, it was energy, and so it's a
Mhm.
matter of what do you do with the energy? It
Right.
can be defensive, but at the same time, it can be something that you travel on, that you
Correct.
utilize, that you shoot yourself somewhere else for.
Mhm.
Um, oh, kitty.
It was Merlin. Aw, he came in. Sorry. There's my cat. Photobombing. Not
Hey,
photobombing, audio bombing. Yeah. He's probably looking
yeah,
for wet food.
yeah. I have one of those too.
As you know, it's early here, but
No, no, I have to feed mine, or she howls like she's gonna die, and
So
not
funny.
not so the case, but she makes it sound like I never feed you, and
Mhm. They're spoiled.
but energetically, it's just we have tools that we can use, but we haven't used in the right way yet. But
Mhm.
I mean, my God, what we have within us is so phenomenal. I mean, we have levitation within us. We have,
Mhm.
travel within us. We have, I mean, look at was it the Buddha who came to a river with his followers, and when they turned around, he was on the other side. We have the teleportation capability.
Mhm.
I mean, there are so many things that we are capable of that we haven't actually um, tapped into, decided to utilize,
Mhm.
and become richer energetically, not necessarily
Right.
monetarily, but energetically. I just saw the time. Um, you want to give out your information as to where you can be found and your other shows and stuff like that?
Sure. Well, I want to say thank you. This has been a wonderful show as always with you, Barbara. So thank you. And yeah, I'm over at Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives.net. That's my website. My radio shows are over there. Raven Stars Witching Hour every Saturday night at 12 midnight Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Pacific. And that's at Revolution Radio Studio A. And then Hyperspace Night Files, which is on Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And of course, Studio A, Revolution Radio. So there you go.
How do you manage two different shows? I mean, is it different material you cover on two different
Um,
shows?
Sometimes it just depends. Usually they're very parallel insofar as the data goes. It depends on the guests, but it's very expansive, eclectic. I cover a lot of different topics. Sometimes I'll just do solo, or sometimes I'll have roundtables, and it's fun. Just kind of shoot the breeze and have a nice conversation like what you and I do. I love it. It's really nice and relaxed, and we get a lot of information across.
Absolutely, and you never know where we're gonna go.
That's right. We did stay on topic, though, didn't we?
We
Pretty
did.
much.
This
This is
was this was
amazing, Barbara.
this was this was a surprise. We didn't get, occasional short trips outside, but right back again. It's a great topic, and I look
Hmm.
forward to getting your book, and
Yeah, I'll
I
send it.
I
Yeah.
will send you Philip Lindsay's book, and
Awesome.
we'll have to talk about that one too.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, so that's it for now. We will be back. Actually, the last Sunday of the month is when we'll be back. That's
That's
only in 2 weeks. No, that's in a week. We're done for this month.
we are. We're just about turning the corner to February. Yep.
Okay, and so it's the last Sunday of the month that we usually do the show.
Mhm.
Okay.
Sounds good.
If we can keep it straight and all things. What is it they say? God willing, and the creek don't rise.
There you go.
Do you know where that term came from?
No.
Um, God willing is obvious, but the creek don't rise. It had nothing to do with the creek. It had to do with an Indian tribe, and it was God willing, and the Indians don't attack.
Oh, wow. Very interesting.
On that note,
All right.
we'll say good night.
Good night. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank